Hello and welcome to the Tilehurst podcast. Not Ben. Well, no, that's not true. He is here, of course, but I'm popping on early today, Ross, to just give you a heads up. There are a few technical issues with the pod today. Zoom's been down. All kinds of other things are going on. Microphones are up in the air. But we're not bothered by any of that because we're very, very lucky, aren't we, Ben?
Yeah, we're joined by. No, I'm still. Just because you nicked my intro, I'm still there. I'm all good. We're joined by Harrison Gilkes, who is the lead development phase coach. Is that right? Something along those lines. Under 18s coach. You got about 4 jobs at the moment.
Yeah, no, spot on. Yeah, working with the under 18s at the moment. So yeah, correct.
Yeah, and ahead of the club's massive final on Tuesday against West Ham, the under 18s final. Live at the SCL, we're going to be pushing tickets all the way through the pod. We keep coming back to that. We thought you'd get you on and talk about the success you've had this season with the team, but also just kind of, how you've got to this point working at kind of our football club. And we try desperately hard not to make reference to who your dad is throughout the pod, who is one of my all-time favourites. But really pleased to have you on here. Really, really kind of delighted to talk to you about the success that the youth team has had this season, and really just kind of catch up with where things are on the pitch, really. Before we do that, massive thanks as always to you guys for listening. It is a special. It's not really a numbered pod. We're just doing it as a kind of a one-off. Very lucky to have Harrison on here. And also thanks to ZCZ Films who support us with absolutely everything that we're doing and continue to do so. So thank you very much for their support. And of course to you guys for listening as well. Really, really appreciate that. We're a little bit later this weekend than we normally are, but hopefully it's been worth the wait, as I said, with Harrison on with us this afternoon. So we'll go from there. I guess really, Harrison, the first thing to start is about you and kind of what's led you to this point. And if you could just talk to us a little bit about your career, to date so far, and how you've kind of then ended up in the role that you're in now.
So I was a young professional at Bournemouth. I had a scholarship there, which starts at the age of 16 and then progressed from that to a young professional up until the ages of 21. Unfortunately, at that point, I developed arthritis in my hip, a condition where I probably wasn't able to perform as consistently and to the level as I would like. So dropped out of professional football and then went into non-league for a bit. Played for some good non-league clubs in Slough, Poole Town. But as I played and as the years went on, it got progressively more difficult to perform at the level required. So I kind of had to knock playing on the head, which was a big thing to do. And if you ask most players, young players as well, I was still 23 at the time, it's not an easy decision to make when all they've wanted to do is play football.
Yeah.
But there was another way I could kind of get my passion for football out, and that was through coaching. So just started doing my coaching badges, worked with the development squad at Reading, so kind of the shadow squad, which was great for me just to get some experience. Worked in soccer schools, local schools, and kind of community work. And then also did a bit of non-league adult coaching too. So I had a real blend and variety of experiences. And then I managed to get on a professional player to coach scheme with the Premier League, which was about 4 years ago, and did that in partnership with Reading. And yeah, since then I've been at the club and have just been learning and enjoying my time, really. Very grateful.
You at Tadley as well?
Yeah, so that was where I kind of got that experience with the men's.
I was going to ask actually there with you, because you mentioned the men's and non-league, so I'm a coach as well, nowhere near as at the level of Harrison, obviously. But I'm always thinking about like how difficult and like the behaviors you get out of various levels or ages of players and stuff. So who is more difficult to manage, the U18s or non-league adults? Who was worse behaved?
I think that's the skill of any good coach, it's recognizing who you're dealing with, where they're coming from, where they are at in their careers and in their lives, and then adjusting your approach to help them get the best out of themselves. I think that's very important. I don't think you can come with your way of doing things. Every coach probably has their personality and their values that they bring to the club and the team. but it's so important that you understand the people you're working with. So yeah, I've got to sit on the fence with that answer.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. You make a really, really good point. Like the first thing, when we're putting together like a game plan or a session plan or whatever, is like thinking just the basics of like who is in front of us. So yeah, starting from there is really interesting. So all right, tell us then, Harrison, what makes Reading's Academy so good? It has saved us, I would say, over the last 3 or 4 years. We've seen lots of great graduates, and just that wall outside the entrance just keeps growing every year. So what makes Reading's Academy so good?
I think it has to be the people inside of it. And when I say the people, I think it's their passion and love for the club. If you look at the employees within the academy, a lot of them have worked here or there for over 10 years. Mm-hmm. So they really understand what it means to work at Reading. A lot of them are from the area as well and have been fans themselves. Like they would have grown up and watched both promotion seasons, myself included. So when you've done that and you've got that affinity to the club, going above and beyond is something that you want to do. It's a natural thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think that is probably the biggest strength which the academy and the club has, and probably one of the things that's helped in these tougher, more recent times. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of clubs that may have more prestige, I don't think they have employees that care and work as hard as much as we do. So yeah, we certainly value that and take pride in that.
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, they're skilled as well. Like they've got good experience. They're good professionals, and of course that's important. You can't just care about the club. You actually have to be good at what you do. And yeah, I can certainly confirm that.
I think we've been happy this year with how, obviously Noel was working with the U21s rather than the U18s, but coming out of that world and into the senior staff, it's impressive how he's kind of fostered the players coming up from the U21. We've talked a lot about his relationship with Jaden Wareham, and just having done it before and having been at the club for so long and understanding what it takes to come through. Yeah, it must be a huge benefit to the players. Do your players ask you about, when you were in a pro and on the scholarship and stuff like that? Do you talk with your players about your time as a player?
Probably in an indirect manner. They're probably, because it was so long ago now, and I didn't have a career to the level that some of these other more illustrious names did. They're probably not as interested in my experiences as I might be, but I can still help them because a lot of the scenarios and situations they've been in, I've been in as well, and have navigated them previously, whether that's dealing with injury, whether it's dealing with the pressures of a big game at youth level, whether it's trying to earn a professional contract, whether it's like trying to transition into the first team. I've kind of experienced those things as well. So it helps me relate to them. I just try to do it in an indirect way. Because you know what young adolescents are sometimes like. They've got everyone in their life telling them what to do and what to think. So
right, yeah.
Not to be another voice that's
I love that. Yeah, you're trying to provide that like opportunity for them to progress, by themselves almost.
Yeah, and guide them where you can.
Love it. Yeah, Ben, I'm talking a lot. Please feel free to ask some questions. As soon as we get into coaching, it's really interesting.
Oh, yeah, are you a coach? I hadn't mentioned it. I just thought. Harris, I mean, you were kind of officially announced as the lead professional development phase coach in January. Obviously, you'd spent kind of around 4 or 5 years. Hopefully, I got that right. In and around the club. What? Just talk us through, because obviously that's quite a mouthful as a title. What does your kind of day-to-day look like kind of at the moment, and what are you responsible for within the club at the moment?
So I'm responsible, I would say, for managing the under-18s group, and that sits within the professional development phase. So in the professional development phase, you've got 2 age groups. You've got the under-21s and then you've got the under-18s. So I'm responsible for kind of coordinating the whole program for that group. And I say the whole program because it's so much more than just football. It's education, it's sports science, strength and conditioning, analysis, psychology. So that all needs to join together, and it needs to fit together in a way so that it helps the players and gets the best out of them from a footballing perspective, because we exist to help develop them as footballers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those components can't exist in silos and in and of themselves. So I'm probably responsible for that, which is good. My job's made a lot easier because I've got great staff around me who are experts in their own areas of their own discipline, should I say. And yeah, I'd say that's probably the best way to describe it. And of course, the footballing side of things and going after that.
No, but I think
Yeah.
building a holistic character is really, because you're working with younger players, of course. So sort of building that character, I think is really important too.
And I guess follow-up question to what you just touched upon before, Ross kicks off with the intricacies of the coaching and sessions and all that kind of stuff. How easy or difficult is it for those young players to stay focused on the education side of it in terms of the schoolwork, and how difficult is it to keep them motivated on that side? Because obviously, from outside professional clubs, there is a perception, for people like myself or Ross who haven't played at any good level at all, really, to kind of stay focused on actually, if it doesn't work out for you, which is a big possibility in terms of the number of players that are playing at this level. How do you get them to stay focused on having a backup plan for if and when they don't make professional terms with any club?
It is tough. It is tough. Like, out of the things I've described to you, the different disciplines and programs, the education bit is probably the bit that the players are least enthusiastic about.
Mm-hmm.
But for the reasons you've described, education is so important. Not everyone will be a professional player. And sometimes that might be through things that are outside of your control, such as injury or bad timing, bad circumstance. So we try to hammer home that importance. We also ensure that throughout the season that there is enough time for players to fulfill their educational requirements. We know that it's quite hectic with training and games can tire you out, but we ensure that they have enough time around training to make sure they're up to date with their studies. And if their studies lag so far behind, it gets to the point where we maybe have to pull them back on the training, because we certainly can't neglect education for anyone.
Yeah, it's pulling back that, like, it's a football, thing, but like you're pulling it back on that holistic side again that we need you to develop as a person as well as a player.
For sure. And once they miss training once or twice, they tend to catch up with their education pretty sharply. So we don't want to do that, of course not, but yeah, sometimes needed.
That makes complete sense. A question, kind of coming off the back of that and thinking about the the player as a person as well. I think it's kind of interesting at the youth level because we try to remind ourselves to think about players as people at the full adult level, but often see them as just these superstars, or you are the striker, or you are the guy who does this. Do you ever run into, I suppose maybe not so much at the U18 age group, but do you ever run into kind of, what's the way to phrase this? Do you ever run into sort of not disagreements, but debates with parents about the development plan they have in their head for their player, or are the parents very good about handing off their player to you, to shape as a footballer?
I'd probably agree with the latter more so. I think we've got good relationships with the parents, and I think there's probably a few reasons for that. I think we've got a really good history, a rich history of helping players develop and demonstrating that we have their best interests at heart. So I think that probably works for us. We also try and be really open and transparent with our communications with parents, and we'll have regular meetings and phone calls with them so that we're on the same page. That's probably the most important point, right? You're on the same page, and there isn't a kind of a lack of clarity but between where the player is and what we feel they need to do and what they feel they need to do. So constant communication is good, and sometimes the history does help.
Yeah, for sure. Harrison is giving a clinic right now on how to coach the whole team, by the way. So question again on that with coaching. Can you give us a sense first of like how many sessions per week you're working with the U18s?
Yeah, so typically, I'd say on a normal week where we've got a game on a Saturday, we will train Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay.
We'll have Thursday off, but the guys will be in for education on that Thursday.
Yep.
And then we'll train on a Friday before playing on the Saturday.
Nice.
So
Okay.
I'd say roughly around four to 5 sessions a week.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, they're really putting their body through it.
Yeah, and listen, we depending on advice from sports science, there will be a variation to the training load. So
Yeah.
some sessions might be lighter from a physical perspective, but they'll be tougher with regards to their decision making and the skills that they have to use. Some
Yeah.
might be quite extensive where they're having to hit top speeds.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the skill of the coach and the support staff come in really in
Yeah.
maximizing the sessions for the players.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So speaking of those coaching sessions then, what does, a typical Monday look like? What will you do? How long will the players spend with you, and what kinds of things will you do? And you don't have to go into too much detail, so we don't want to
Yeah.
give the game away to other academies.
Yeah, no. So, sports science, they hammer me sometimes because the session on a Monday is supposed
Yeah.
to only be an hour because we would have played 2 days before.
Yeah.
But sometimes I get carried away and we're out there for an hour and a half. And
Yeah. Yeah.
the great thing is the players always want to stay out because they're
Yes.
enjoying it so much. They like playing football. So sometimes we just have to pull them back. But no, a typical Monday would be a light warm up, and then we would go through some kind of a technical positional game.
Yep.
Which, and this might depend and vary on the players we have. So if we've got, I'd say 70% of the players need one thing, we'd base the session around that. But
Yeah.
I'd say a technical positional type of possession, and then we might finish with some isolated finishing or defending bits, and then with some games. Like they
Nice.
love finishing with games. So
Yeah. They call it scrimmage over here, and
yeah,
they're constantly asking about scrimmage. When are we scrimmaging? All of this
yeah.
kind of stuff. I'm like, never. If you ask me one more time, we're not doing it.
Here they call it bounce games.
Bounce games.
Yeah,
Okay.
bounce games. But yeah, it's the same concept.
Love that. How many players, Ben, I'm going to let you talk any second. I'm sorry. One last question on the session. How many players on average in the sessions that you're coaching?
So this season it's varied a fair bit, and you'll probably know that there's been a fair few under 18s that have played in the 21s and played in the first team, which is great. That's why we exist. That's what we want. That's success for us. So that's varied. We've also had a fair few injuries this season, so that's impacted it too. But I would say sessions this season have varied from between 6 to 18 players.
Nice.
So yeah, you've got to be ready to adapt.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that leads me on to the next question, really. You touched upon a little bit there, but I'm, thinking of Andre Garcia, who is, 17 still? 16, 17?
Yeah.
How impacted has your under 18 side been by the first team having to rely on a lot of younger players, and obviously, those players getting promoted in inverted commas to the under 21s as well? Like, have you found that quite challenging to kind of match up with what those other teams need in terms of their requirements and the skill level that the under 18s have got? Is it that you are potentially scrabbling around for players sometimes? Like, how does it work in terms of those conversations with the other members of staff, and how difficult has it been to kind of plan those sessions, knowing that you might have one of your players nicked by one of the other teams?
No, really good point, and there's loads to unpack there. I think one of the things you mentioned is players playing up, and that's brilliant for the player because it stretches them and tests them in a way which players at their own age aren't able to do. It also provides them with an opportunity to prove to the coaches that they can do it. So that's a really good part of it. However, we as coaches know that it's not just a one-off. So if we put a player up to the under 21s, because that's what the club requires in this moment, because of the demands placed on it, that player might not be ready.
Yeah.
There might be certain aspects he's got to kind of work on still. So we'll have conversations and make sure that we're providing the player with feedback after so that he's clear on what he needs to work on, because it would be easy to just throw the player up and just let him get on with it. But not all of them are able to cope and adapt. And that's where we kind of earn our money as youth coaches, really, in providing that support after.
Yeah.
With regards to, has it been more competitive or been tougher to be competitive for the under-18s on a Saturday? I'd probably say yes. Other academies that are maybe more consistent in the training group that they have each and every day, and so can work on certain patterns of play, styles of play, principles that we maybe aren't able to do.
Yeah.
So we've got to adapt. But yeah, ultimately, I think the way it's worked this season has, in general and as a whole, benefited the players more so because it's given them opportunities.
I mean, I think it's impressive that you're competing with these academies that maybe have a more consistent group that they're training with every day, and yet you're still, in that pack towards the top of the group rather than towards the bottom, with guys who may have more time, more resources. So it is really impressive in that regard. Quick question. Does Andre Garcia have to go to the schoolwork thing with you guys on Thursday?
Yes.
Okay.
His day is on Wednesday because the first team have Wednesday off. But Wednesday and Monday afternoons, yeah.
Nice.
You'll find Andre in the classroom.
I got told the other day, and I don't know if I told you this, Ross, but I heard that he has to get, because of his age, he has to get chained separately from the other players on match day. Is that true?
I'm not sure. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, with regards to safeguarding, that wouldn't.
Of course.
It
just blows my mind. Honestly, because you just, I don't know, they step on a pitch and they're men and they're ready to go on the rest of it. But I always have to check myself and remind myself that he is very, very young, in terms of that, and incredible talent, absolutely incredible talent. So hopefully we've got a few more of those, in the book somewhere along the lines, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. I'm just looking at your results. Since February, the club, under 18s, beaten Leicester 4-2, Everton 2-1, Spurs 2-0, Norwich 5-2, Liverpool 3-0 in the semi-final. I'm going to talk about the final later on. That's upcoming. Fulham, beat them. Lost to Chelsea. Beat Brighton 3-1. And then, a fantastic warm-up result on Saturday, beating West Ham 3-1 away, in preparation for the final to come on the 22nd. That's a tremendous run of results. I haven't even mentioned the draws there. That's quite an incredible run for any team, let alone a youth team that has been affected in a positive way by players stepping up and being promoted and so forth. What do you put that run down to? Is it the way they're coached, the players? What? Because you're beating some traditionally really good academies there.
No, we are, and the results speak for themselves. Really, it's just how the players have. I think the strength of the group is their togetherness, and they've been together. I'd say for some of them have been here since they were 9, so almost 7-8 years. I think they really enjoy playing with one another. Their mesh and blend of personalities, when something just fits and clicks and goes right. I think we've been very lucky in how that's happened. And I think that's been the backbone to the success of those results. But yeah, they've demonstrated fantastic ability to work hard each and every day. I don't think those results are luck. I don't think they can be luck when it's been that consistent for that period of time. And if you came and watched them train on a Monday through to a Friday, none of that would surprise you because they work so hard and apply themselves so well. So yeah, I didn't realize it was like that. When you read it out like that, it's something.
I'm just looking over them again. That's one loss in all competitions since the 25th of January. That was the day you took over. That was the day you would. That was the news announcement. Was it the 25th?
I think it would have been around then. Yeah, would have been around then.
The Gilkes effect.
No, we lost the first one, I think.
No. Forget about that one. So, that was the old manager's fault.
A good start, was it? But, they're incredible results. Absolutely incredible results. That's quite something. And we can't get away from the fact that obviously the club overall is doing okay. At most levels. Obviously the first team have been outstanding. What is there a conversation that you have with the other coaches, and do you try to match up the tactical elements of what those other teams are doing with the under 18s, or do you have license to go, these are players I've got. I'm going to set them up in the best way that I can. Same with the under-21s, and same with the first team.
Yeah, we try and work to principles as best as we can. And don't get me wrong, like if the first team came tomorrow and mandated that we play a certain way in a certain formation, we would do that immediately to serve them. But they are quite open, and I think from having coaches and managers that have been inside the academy themselves and haven't had experience in the academy, they know that it's useful for the players to experience different things, different formations,
Yeah.
different ways of doing it, so that when they do step up, they can be adaptable. Because, listen, being adaptable in football is so key and crucial now.
I was going to say, yeah, because I've sort of perceived it almost as like not a full shift, because it would be, you still set up a team in some sort of formation, at least out of possession, but like, has there been, I guess, do you still group players by like position groups or like roles, just as important? Like, I guess, how do you categorize players in this day and age? I feel like it's changed a lot in the last 10 years.
It probably has. I think one of the things we look at using is looking at what players can do.
Yeah.
What are they really, really good at? What's going to hopefully get them to the 21s? What's going to hopefully get them to the first team? And then we find ways or areas or positions on the pitch where they can demonstrate that as best as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And whilst we're doing that, we're also trying to teach them how they can minimize or mask those weaknesses that would maybe hold them back. So, yeah, we try and see it from a strength-based perspective where possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, formations are important. You need to have a structure. I think that's really important out of possession as well when you're trying to be hard to beat in competitive.
I think one of our listeners, I'm going to bring this question in now just because it's kind of interesting to what we're talking about with formations then. So one of our listeners, and you can tell him if they're wrong, don't worry, we won't be mad. But he reckons he's seen them kind of playing a variant of almost like a back five or a back three in recent weeks, which isn't something that we've seen so much yet with the first team. Can you talk about kind of that, whether that's come from personnel decisions, sort of tactical decisions, where that kind of came from?
Yeah, no, he's correct. Or they.
Yep. All right,
correct.
good.
Yeah,
You're right,
Jordan. And yeah, I think as you've alluded to there, you look at the personnel which you have available to you on that weekend. You look at who needs certain minutes. You look at which players are restricted. You then look at the opposition you're playing against, what their strengths and what their weaknesses are, and you go with a formation or a structure that you think gives you the best chance of being effective and helping your players be effective.
Yeah.
So it can change. I think that the listener is correct, but within that, there've been certain elements or certain days where we've gone with a back four, or we might have changed at half time. So it all depends, and I think that's one of the strengths that we've shown as a group. The players are able to adapt at the drop of a hat to this or that, and that certainly will aid them in the future.
I'd like to think that's kind of something we're going to come out of this whole off the pitch debacle with is that kind of just applying ourselves and adapting, kind of, as you said, that so many players have adapted on the first team as well over the last year. In an incredible way, so, and actually, I guess, so talking about the first team and there being so many young players in there now, do the players that you're working with, see that as exciting? Do they see that pathway through to the first team, as being somewhat open to them, or more open than it could be?
100%. And I don't know so much because I don't ask the players, but if I was to look at the number of under-18s players who have trained with the first team this season, I think the majority of them would have had some experience in some form. And if you compare that to 5 or 6 years ago, that would be vastly different, I'd imagine. Now, that's not always a good thing. Like, you need to get the balance right, and the players need to be in the right place to be given that opportunity. But with regards to providing a pathway and opportunities to progress, I don't think there's another club right now that can rival the pathway which Reading offers.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Ben, I've stopped asking coaching questions.
No, there's a load of players we could talk about, but possibly the player that has caught my eye literally just for his name, and I know he plays centre back, and we are looking for possible replacements for Tyler Binden. If we can't bring anyone else in, Jacob Neptune, the greatest name in football, has to be at the moment. How far can he go at the moment?
Jacob's progressed really well from the start of the year, where he was battling some injury issues, but he's worked hard, and that's something which he demonstrates each and every day, whether he's on the pitch or off the pitch, an application and professionalism in how he works. So that's certainly a trait which you look at the best players, they typically all tend to have.
Mm-hmm.
So although he didn't play at the start of the season, he was working in coming back, and I think he came back around November time. But his run of form and how he's done recently has actually coincided with the team and how they've done well over the 2025 period. So he certainly contributed to that. I think for him, it's just a case of continuing to do so. And it might sound a bit boring and cliched, but continuing to work hard each and every day and seeing where that takes you. Because the thing you count on at Reading is if you continue to do that, you will have an opportunity in some way, shape, or form at some point.
Yeah,
and it's really exciting. I mean, there's a number that we could talk about, but for those players in particular, and as you said with Ross just a minute ago, like you see these players leaving, and actually, like there is a pathway for these players. That there is a really clearly defined pathway because of the way the club is at the moment. Is it quite easy to convince players to stay? Maybe when there's other conversations with traditionally larger clubs or more money on the table, or is it one of those where you kind of have to be realistic about our players, being poached by other clubs around, not just geographically, but within the league and the age group itself. How does that work in terms of trying to keep the group together?
It's a good question, and I think we've got to try and change the narrative on how we approach this. I think we've got to come away from trying to persuade players to play or to want to play for Reading. Do you know what I mean? You shouldn't have to be persuaded to want to play for us.
Right.
You should want to play for us as much as I want to work for Reading, and as much as I enjoy being at Reading. And that's the key thing. I think when you try and persuade someone to do something, it's always at the back of their mind if I did this or if I went there and done that. And we want players that want to play for the club. That's so important, and that's one of the most important things. That if you went and watched the first team on a Saturday at the moment, I think you'd see 11 players, 16 players who all look like they want to play for the club. And I don't think it's hard to see where some of the performances are coming from with regards to how well those guys are doing right now. And we want that to breed throughout the academy, to be honest.
And I think you mentioned earlier the history too at the academy. There's the past, but then there's the here and now. Like the parents, whoever, see it every day with what you guys are doing. But there's also that, there's that backup of like, look at all of these players that came through. We know that we're doing something right here. And I feel like it's sped up even in the last 5 to 10 years. So yeah, really impressive.
I mean, there's no right answers, but that's the greatest answer we could hear. Honestly, that's fantastic. So, as long as everyone else is kind of along those lines as well, that's great. And, the future's really bright. And as you said, we've seen that this year I've watched more of the under-21s than I have the under-18s, to be honest, purely because of the location and timings of the game and stuff. But, certainly for the first team, as a fan, you're right. Like we haven't had that for a long time in terms of feeling like all the players are pulling in the right direction and kind of wanting to be there at that moment in time. So that's a great answer. Honestly, you smashed out of the park. Well done, brilliant.
It's honest, and we're fans. Like I go and watch the game with the under-18s where we can, and when you see a team playing like that, you leave and you feel excited. That's why we turn up to watch football games.
Right. Yeah.
To see our players play for the club like that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, yeah. Entertainment and inspiration,
For sure.
all in one package. So how much? Obviously, with him having done a similar role not that long ago at all, how much contact and conversation do you have through your week with Noel at the moment?
Yeah, fairly consistent conversation and communication with Noel.
Nice.
And it might just be in off chance encounters. So I was at the under 21s game against Brighton. I think it was on Monday night, and Noel was there, Nigel was there, and Gilkesy was there, and we're just there together watching the game, talking football.
Yep.
I think those opportunities are really good for me because I get opportunities to ask them what they see. I get to tap into their knowledge. I also get to ask them questions about what they need in the first team and what such and such player could do to bridge the gap that might exist between them and the first team. So those kind of chance encounters are really, really useful.
Mm-hmm.
I also speak with Mikael Ledgerwood near enough every day, and he'll give consistent feedback on players that have played up and ones that have done well and areas for improvement of other ones who maybe haven't done as well. And I just think that really helps, to be honest, the players in when they go up. And a lot of the players worked with Ledge or Mikel earlier this season, so
You
that
can
makes
call
them,
him Ledge on this podcast. Don't
yeah.
worry. We all know who you mean. Don't worry.
Um, so I think that helps the transition for them when they go over and they see someone that they know cares about them as well, because it can be quite intimidating as a younger player going over to the first team for the first time. So I think
you
it's helping.
You spoke about being a fan of the club too, which is awesome. And am I right in thinking that Ledge was the head coach while you were the assistant previously at the U18s? So what was it like being the assistant to the guy who literally got us promoted? Last time that must have been wild.
Yeah, it was more surreal when I first joined. To be fair, 5 years before.
Yeah.
But yeah, since then I've worked with Ledge. He was the 18s coach and I was the 16s coach. So we
Nice.
would talk a lot and collaborate a lot. And then I got the opportunity to work under him and with him. And yeah, he was brilliant for me. He taught me a lot. And yeah, very
Nice.
grateful to have had that opportunity.
I do get a little, it's funny you're talking about being excited at the games. I get a little bit excited seeing him sometimes, where I'm just like, there's always Nottingham Forest in the back of my head when I see Ledge. Like, I just can't get it out of there. So, yeah, that's what makes me feel good about this season, having him on the touchline too.
For sure. With those people on the touchline, it makes you believe, right? They've been there.
It really does.
And who knows where we'll go with it and how it will end, but you certainly believe, or I do anyway.
Yeah.
Last question before we talk about your massive game next week. Less than a week away now. It's next Tuesday. I'm going to put you on a spot here because there's been a big conversation amongst fans online and I guess in person as well. What is the difference between Cat 1 and Cat 2 academies?
So there's a fairly sizable difference with regards to your games program. And what I mean by your games program is who you will typically play each week. Now, that might seem like a small thing, but it's actually a really big thing, because if you ask coaches and players what often drives your level of improvement up the most, it will be the players you play against. If you play against better players, you're going to develop and push yourself to a level than maybe playing against lesser skilled players. I think having a Category 1 academy also means you attract the best talent in the country. And that's so important because, like, we as coaches and support staff can do a lot to develop players, but good players are good players, right? Yeah. They are typically good players anyway. So
yeah,
that's so important in being able to attract the best talent. And I think that then impacts the level within the group, and good players push good players to develop further and further. So yeah, I'd say attracting the best talent and also providing that talent pool with challenge at the appropriate level to make them as good as they can be.
I feel like most teams that I've had, especially once you get up to higher levels, is like 2 to 3 really solid, great players, and then 8 or 9 really hard workers who are talented enough to get by, but they work hard, and that's the most important thing. They love their game and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, like you say, sometimes good footballers are just good footballers, and if we get them as coaches, we're lucky.
Good stuff. I mean, there's been so much stuff said, and I'm like, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's like in terms of differences and stuff. But it's good to, it's good to hear from someone inside the club as to what the key differences are, so we can just kind of work it out. But yeah, go on.
Also, the support that you provide the players, like I mentioned, the games program, the talent pool, being able to attract it. But for you to be a Category 1 academy, you have to make sure that you provide top tier holistic development for your players. And that goes into the strength and conditioning, the coaching, the analysis, the psychology, the education, the player care. You've got to be spot on with all of those aspects, and that's probably what differentiates a Cat 1 from a Cat 2. And obviously, for all that, you need funding, you need investment and backing, because those things don't come cheap either. But you'll see that the best players will typically be supported in that way in their youth careers. So yeah, if we want to continue to develop in players as we have, I think retaining our Category 1 status was crucial and is crucial.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this backing then, because next Tuesday, 7 o'clock kickoff live at the Stade de SEL. Under 18s play West Ham, and let me get this right, in the Premier League Cup final. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so you beat Liverpool in a semi-finals, comprehensive victory. Little curtain raiser before that this past Saturday when you beat West Ham 3-1 away from home. Tickets I've got to plug this. Tickets are available. I think it's about £4 a go, something like that for an adult.
You've got to hit that up. Come on now. I'd have to pay for a plane ticket. £4.
But I need to definitely get this right, because I'll get shouted at by important people. But the Supporters Trust, basically said anyone who attends that game next week will be entered into a raffle to potentially win their season ticket for the first team for the 25-26 season. So if you need any more incentive to go and watch the under-18s, our future at the club, that's it. So £4. I think it's free parking as well. Again, Tim's going to have a go at me if I say free parking and it's not. And everyone's going to come at me like they normally do. But, that's kind of, that's the crux of it. So next Tuesday, 7 o'clock kickoff, your team playing West Ham under-18s. Talk to us a little bit about how you won the game this past Saturday against them, and what are you expecting this coming Tuesday from them in response, I guess, to Saturday's defeat?
We know West Ham are always competitive, and we know that they've got good players who are technically capable, but they're also physically good as well. So we know that they can hurt you in different ways, and it's important that we're prepared for whichever way they decide or opt to hurt us with on the night. I think beating them on the Saturday or the Saturday just gone was very important, because it maintained our momentum that you've alluded to earlier in the conversation. So being able to maintain that momentum was crucial for us, and it's certainly going to add to the energy that we're going to feel on Tuesday Cup final night, with the supporters being able to attend. So yeah, we see it. We see the game as an opportunity, something that we're excited about, something that we want to go and approach and show our best side to. We want the fans to leave excited as well. So hopefully we can prepare in that way and give ourselves the best possible chance of being successful.
Now, will it be chippy? Because I see West Ham got 2 red cards in that game. So what on earth was going on there?
Do you know what? It wasn't any confrontation between the teams, to be fair. It was a foul, I think, on the 60th minute mark.
Yep, you're pretty much bang on.
Yeah, stopped a counter-attack, and then one was, I think it was for dissent towards the referee, 2 yellow cards. Okay. So, nice. Yeah, I don't think there'll be any animosity.
No handbags or anything.
No.
Nice. Okay. Well, definitely get down there, though, because it sounds like it could be, despite what Harrison is saying, it could be spicy. So it sounds like it'll be spicy when we win the thing anyway. So that's exciting. I see what's actually really exciting about it is that Reading have won this cup once before, I believe, like 10 years, maybe longer ago. So good to stick another one of our names on the cup.
I think the 21s won the cup.
Okay. Might got that wrong.
I think they won it the first year it was created.
Okay.
It was I think my dad was involved in the
Oh
in the
yeah.
21 team that won that.
Nice.
So yeah, it would be nice to finish it up.
Yeah, bring it home.
Later.
Keep it in the family.
I mean, these are games that you know. First of all, as a player, you want to play at the highest level, and it doesn't get much higher at under 18s than the cup final, right? But
Exactly.
in terms of coaching, it's a big stage for you as well in terms of career progression and what might come out of it as a result. Because whilst the players are getting noticed, like the job that you've done and your backroom staff have done as well has been absolutely phenomenal. So that there must be a part of you that's like really, really excited for Tuesday and just kind of almost like counting down the minutes to get into the stadium and go and win, surely.
Yeah, I'm excited for the game itself. As you said, this is what you work for as a competitor, either as a player and as a coach. I'd be very, very, very pleased if the players, if we're able to win it for them, for where they've come. I've worked with some of these players for 3 to 4 years now, and I've seen them over their journey. I've seen them in difficult times. I've seen them in good times, and they're going to progress some of them to the 21s next season and beyond. And our journey together will obviously stop. So it would be a lovely way to kind of top it off by winning it together. But those things are out of your control as well. You know what I mean? We're going to try our best as we always have, and the chips will fall where they'll fall.
Now, will you be a tracksuit or manager on the sideline, or will it be a full suit for the cup final?
One of the players told me this. He said, Dennis told me I've got to wear a suit to the final.
Yeah, I think so.
But I think I'd get hammered if I wore a suit.
All right. Well, listeners, we got to fund a nice 3-piece Gareth Southgate set up for Harrison.
Have you told them all about the wash bag thing as well? When they get off the coach, they got to walk through the tunnel.
Oh, they already know that. They've been doing that for years. Yeah. They already know about that.
Love that. Listen, I mean, it should be good. Like, I'm excited by it. Honestly, some of these players are great, and I think really it's another opportunity, a little bit like the double header, but the United game and the Brighton game that we had over this last weekend at the stadium for the under-21s. Obviously there was more for United than there was Brighton because it's United, and there was a lot of United fans certainly around where I was. Not so many Brighton fans, but still good to be in a stadium to watch them. I think any opportunity that you get to support the young lads, that in my opinion is great, and I know it's been tricky with the stadium and the usage and different managers want different things with the pitch and stuff, but having these games in front of home fans, because I was looking at some of your times here, some of your games like 11 o'clock on a Wednesday and all this kind of stuff, like you're not going to be able to get into that, but it's a really, really good opportunity to go and support the players, and obviously to support Harrison and his coaching staff as well, and ultimately to support the club, because like we've said, whether it's women's, whether it's under 9s, whether it's under 21s, first team, under 18s, whatever, all under the umbrella of Reading Football Club. So, we really hope you do well. We're not going to wish you luck because we don't believe in luck on the pod. You make your own luck and you've got this far. I mean, the results, as we said earlier, are absolutely outstanding, really. Really, really good. Final question for you, and again, this is putting you on the spot. Who was the better player, you or your dad?
My dad by a long way. He was a lot quicker than me as well, and he had an amazing career. Played, I think I didn't realise he's Reading's 4th-time record appearance holder.
Yeah,
I didn't realise that until the other day. Someone told me, and to play that many times professionally is an amazing achievement. But to do it for one club is an even bigger achievement, and it doesn't surprise me when you said he's your favourite player. That's probably one of the reasons.
Yeah. Did you ever see him play for Reading?
I was young. There's pictures of me in the crowd, and I was young, so I didn't get to kind of remember it. But I did certain memories. I watched tapes anyway.
Yeah,
there you go.
That makes sense.
He
Yeah,
was a great player, your dad. Don't tell him I
Don't
said
worry,
that.
Harrison. I think you and I are about the same age, and Ben is often going on about players
Well
like
off.
Paul McGrath who exist apparently back in the ether of the '90s or something. Like,
Yeah, place
don't
called
worry, you're
Elm
fine
Park. Don't you know
mentioning
that?
Noel and all those
before our
guys.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Listen, Harrison, it's been absolutely fantastic to speak
yeah,
to you. It really has, and we've had a really good insight into not just what you do, but the club itself and how the players operate and stuff like that. And I think I speak for Ross here, and I guess anyone else listening, but from my point of view, it's been really encouraging to listen to you and the way you've kind of promoted the under 18s and the academy itself, and how well the club is doing given kind of the circumstances and everything else. And long may that positivity and the kind of the will to do well exist within the club, really, regardless of what happens off the pitch. Like I still would say to anyone, we've had a phenomenal season at most, if not all, age groups. Even the women who've done fantastically well to stay in the division with a couple of games to spare. So it's been really, really encouraging to be able to talk to a lot of people. But you tonight has been absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much for your time. It's getting quite late now, so we'll let you go. Ross is about to have his breakfast or something, given the time difference or whatever he's doing. So yeah.
Can't afford breakfast, covered in tariffs. Anyway, thank you, Harrison. This was really, really interesting. Yeah, really appreciate you. And best of luck for the Tuesday night.
No, really appreciate it, guys, and thanks for doing what you guys do, really, in giving the fans a voice and representing us. So, yeah, hopefully we'll do what we can on Tuesday.
There we go.
And don't get your tickets as well. £4. I think £4 adults, all online. Can do it all online. Get it loaded to your member card, season ticket, whatever. They're there. Lower West Stand open. Double check the parking, because I don't want to tell you it's free and then get there it's like 20 quid or something. But yeah, double check that one. Harrison, thank you so much. Ross, we will see you. We've got a weird couple of games now, haven't we?
I don't know.
Friday,
We'll be
Monday.
back soon.
We're back
Never
never
promise the day that we'll be back. Someday.
No, never do that. Thanks for listening, everybody. Come on, you arts.